Hello guys, today I'll be explaining chapter 5 section 4 for our periodic tomorrow for algebra. Okay, so for this first question, write the radical expressions in simplest form. 7 radical 3 minus 3 radical 128 plus 3 radical 8. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do is prime factorize each of the radicands, like the numbers inside the radical. So 32 could be split up into 16 and 2. 16 and 2 is prime. 16 could be split up into 4 and 4. 4 could be split up into 2 and 2. Okay, so now we have the prime numbers. So radical 32 could be split up into 2 squared multiplied by 2 squared multiplied by 2. So as we know, for every number we have squared, we take 1 to the outside. So we have 2 squares, so we take 2 multiplied by 2 outside the radical. So we're going to have 7 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2, and then we leave the radical 2 in the radical since it's not squared. So that's going to be 14. 14 multiplied by 2 is going to be 28, and then the radical 2 we leave it. So for the first one, it's going to be 28 radical 2. Alright, let's leave that not actually. Okay, so minus 3 radical 128. So 128 could be split up into 64 and 2. 64 could be split up into 8 and 8. And then 2 and 4. And then 2. And then 4 could be split up into 2 and 2. Okay. So now we have radical 128 as, wait a minute. No, my bad, I forgot about this one over here. 4 and 2. So yeah. So now we have radical 128 in prime factorization. So that will be 2 squared multiplied by 2 squared multiplied by 2 squared multiplied by 2. Okay, so we take out 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 outside the radical, and we keep this radical 2 inside. So that's going to be minus 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 radical 2. So minus 3 multiplied by 2 is minus 6. Minus 6 multiplied by 2 is minus 12. Minus 12 multiplied by 2 is minus 24. And we leave the radical 2. So far we have 28 radical 2 and minus 24 radical 2. And then lastly we have 8 in prime factorization is just really simple. 4 and 2, 2 and 2. Okay, so we're gonna have, keep this 3 outside, 2 squared multiplied by 2. So we take 1, 2 out. So it's gonna be 6 radical 2. So let's show you what we got already now. We have 28 radical 2 minus 24 radical 2 plus 6 radical 2. Okay, and now if you study the book, the ebook, you're gonna know that you can only add when the things you're adding have the same number in the radicand. The same radicand. The number inside the radical has to be the same, or else you can't add it. Like let's say you had, instead of 28 radical 2, it was 28 radical 3 minus 24 radical 2. That's in simplest form. You cannot do anything more. So now we'll just leave the radical 2 to the side. And you don't do like radical 2 plus radical 2 plus radical 2, you get radical 8. That's not how it works. You just leave the radical 2 to the side. So you do 28 minus 24, that's going to be 4. And then plus 6, that's going to be 10. So it's going to be 10 radical 2. That's your final answer. And as I said, you don't do, let's say you had 28 radical 2, like same example. You don't just cancel out this radical 2 and leave it, and yeah, you don't just do that. Yeah, that's not how it works. You when you have this, like the radicand, you just leave it to the side. So that's going to be 10 radical 2. Now where the hell did I go? 1 second. Alright, so question 2. Okay, so for this one, this is in the form of a squared minus b squared, yeah? I mean, no, not a squared minus b, a minus b. This is in the form of that. And what, like a minus b squared, like, and the squared is outside. So what you basically do here, the formula is a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. We all learned this. I think you all know this by now. So we do radical 25 squared. That's obviously going to be 25. Now, we do, to find minus 2ab, we do this 2 multiplied by the minus 3. You will get minus 6 radical 3. And you don't do 2 multiplied by radical 3 to get to radical 6, you know, like you don't get minus 6 radical 6. That's wrong. When you have minus 2ab, you multiply the 2 only by the number in the outside. You don't multiply it by what's inside the radical. Okay, so minus 6 radical 3 multiplied by radical 25, because it's minus 2ab, we need to include a. Here, you, like when you're multiplying two numbers that are both inside the radical, you just basically, like, you're gonna get minus 6 radical 75. Again, here you don't do minus 6 radical 25 and then radical 75. That's not how it works. Okay, so 75, we're gonna need to prime factorize that. That is gonna be 25 and 3, 5 and 5. Okay, so it's gonna be 5 squared multiplied by 3. So you take a 5 in the outside. So you're gonna have minus 6 multiplied by 5 and then radical 3 in the inside. Minus 6 multiplied by 5 is gonna be minus 30. So your final answer is gonna be minus 30 radical 3. Okay. And now we have b squared left. In the formula, a minus b turns into a minus b inside bracket squared, a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So we have b squared left. Now for this, we're going to square what's outside the bracket and what's inside. So we have minus 3 squared, it's just going to be 9. And then radical 3 squared, it's going to be just 3. So it's going to be 9 multiplied by 3. Because when you take something outside the radical, it's going to be multiplied. So 9 multiplied by 3 is 27. So b squared is 27. So let's set this up. So we got 25. And then we got minus 30 radical 3. Then plus 27. So we can only add 25 and 27. We can't subtract the minus 30 radical 3. Because this is like its own variable, you know? Like imagine this is x. And then this is also x. And then you have y over here. You can't just do x minus y and get some random number. Like you add, like imagine this is its own variable. So you just leave it. So 25 plus 27 is 52. And then you have minus 30 radical 3. As I said, imagine it's its own variable, so you just leave it. This is kind of messed up. But yeah, so 25 plus 27, 52. And minus 30 radical 3. You just leave it that way. You don't do 52 minus 30 and you get 22 radical 3. I mean 22 radical 3. That's not how it works. Because this is like adding, this is like x and this is y. You can't just do that. Okay, so for this question, I see a lot of people struggling. So as I said, first thing we do is prime factorize. 32 turns into 16 and 2. 4, 4. So we have 2 squared multiplied by 2 squared multiplied by 2. So we take out 2 multiplied by 2 squared multiplied by 2 squared, we take it out, it's going to be 2 multiplied by 2, which is just going to be 4. And then we leave in the radical 2 inside. So it's going to be 3 over 4 radical 2 over radical 7. And now, as all of you guys know, we can't just have an... we need to rationalize the denominator. We can't just have an irrationalized denominator and just leave the fraction like that. So we're going to multiply by radical 2 up and down. It's going to be 3 over 4. Radical 7 multiplied by radical 2 is radical 14. Radical 2 multiplied by radical 2 is just going to be 2. When you take it outside the radical, it's going to be multiplied. So 4 multiplied by 2 is 8. And we have 3 radical 14. So you're going to get 3 over 8 radical 14 for the first one. Now, 45 over 70. So the first thing you want to do, radical 45 over radical 70, is divide by 5. And by the way, an important thing, you can't, let's say this wasn't radical 70, it was just 70. You can't divide, you can't just do radical 45 divided by 5 and radical 70 divided by 5, so you get 14 and the radical 9. That's not how it works. You can only divide what's, you can only divide, if you have two numbers inside the radical, you can divide them. But if you have a number outside the radical and the number inside, you cannot. So this is going to be radical 9 over radical 14. Okay, radical 9, we all know that's just 3. So we have 3 over radical 14. Multiply by radical 14 up and down. You'll have 3 over 14 multiplied by radical 14. So the first fraction is 3 over 8 radical 14. The second fraction is 3 over 14 radical 14. Now, as I said, you leave this to the side with the radicals. You don't subtract them and stuff. So let's just forget about the radical for now. Let's put it to the side. So I have 3 over 8 minus 3 over 14. So we need to find the LCD to make this easier. So 8 is 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2. 14 is 7 multiplied by 2. So the common factor actually is 2. And the uncommon, for the first fraction we need to multiply by 7. And for the second fraction we're going to need to multiply by 4, because 2 multiplied by 2. So multiply first fraction by 7. And second fraction by 4. You get 21 over 56 minus 12 over 56. That's going to be 9 over 56. And this is when you get back the radical 14. You cannot forget about this, it's very important. So they're asking what is A. So A over B equals 9 over 56. A is 9 and B is 56. That's pretty straightforward. Okay, for this question, basically the same concept about the last question. So first of all, we could easily rationalize the denominator, multiply by radical 3 up and down. So we have radical 11 over radical 3, can't forget about the 3 over here, multiply by radical 3. You'll get radical 33 and then 3 over 3. So 3 over 3 is obviously 1, so you'll have 1 radical 33. And then 1 radical 33, make sure to keep that 1, and you don't just write radical 33. That will confuse you, trust me. Okay, so for the second fraction, we have 27. We could prime factorize that. 3 and 9. 3 and 3. Okay, so we could take out a 3. So we'll keep in the 3, we'll take out 3 squared, it will become 3, and we'll keep in this 3. Okay, so we have 5 over 2 multiplied by 3, radical 11 over radical 3. Multiply by radical 3 up and down. You will get 5, so this is going to be 5 over 6, obviously. This is going to be radical 33, and this becomes 3. So we have 5 over 6 multiplied by 3, and then radical 33. It's going to be 5 over 18. Okay, now we need to add the fractions. So we have 1 over 1 radical 33 plus 5 over 18 radical 33. Keep this to the side. So we have 1 over 1 plus 5 over 18. We'll need to have the same denominator, so we multiply by 18 in the first fraction. You will have 18 over 18 plus 5 over 18, which is just going to be 23 over 18. And now you add in the radical 33, so the final answer is 23 over 18 radical 33. So A is 23 and B is 18. Okay, for like these types of questions. So first of all, when you see a question like this, you're gonna have to multiply the numerator and denominator by something called the conjugate. The conjugate is basically the denominator, so radical 3 minus 2, but the sign flipped. So since we have a minus over here, like this middle sign flipped. So since we have a minus, it's gonna be plus. And we multiply this by the numerator and denominator. Okay. And then a really easy shortcut. When you're multiplying the the conjugate with the denominator, the answer is always gonna be a squared minus b squared. Like, it's not gonna be the 2ab and these types of stuff. So we have a squared, radical 3 squared is gonna be 3, and then we have minus 2. When we square it, it's going to be 4. So the denominator is going to be minus 1. We already have the denominator. Now we multiply the numerator. We have 8 minus 5 radical 3 multiplied by radical 3 plus 2. So 8 multiplied by radical 3 is going to be 8 radical 3 8 multiplied by 2 is going to be 16. Minus 5 radical 3 multiplied by radical 3. So we'll have minus 5. That's going to be 3. So we'll have minus 5 multiplied by 3. So this is going to be minus 15. And then we have minus 5 radical 3 multiplied by 2. Okay, so for minus 5 radical 3 multiplied by 2, as I said, when you have a number that isn't in a radical, you don't multiply it with the number inside the radical. You only multiply it with the number outside. So minus 5 multiplied by 2. So that's going to be minus 10. And you leave the radical 3. You don't do radical 3 multiplied by 2 to get to radical 6. So yeah. Minus 10 radical 3. So 8 radical, so now 8 radical 3 minus 10 radical 3, that's going to be minus 2 radical 3. And then 16 minus 15 is going to be 1. So now let's set up our fraction. We have minus 2 radical 3 plus 1 over minus 1. Now since this is a minus 1, what we do is we change the sign of minus 1 to plus 1, and we flip all of the signs of the numerator. So we have minus 2, it's going to be positive 2, and this is positive 1, it's going to be negative 1. So your final answer is going to be 2 radical 3 minus 1, and they're asking for k, and that's going to be 2. Okay, so the most important thing, as I told you, the first step is to prime factorize. 75 is 25 and 3, 5 and 5. So you have 5 squared multiplied by 3. Take out the 5 squared, it's going to be 5 radical 3. And we have a 6 in the outside, so it's going to be 6 multiplied by 5. Because when you take a squared number outside the radical, it's going to be multiplication. So 6 multiplied by 5, it's going to be 30 radical 3. Okay. 48 prime factorization. (24 and 2), 12 and 2, 6 and 2, and we have 3 and 2. So we have 2 squared multiplied by 2 squared multiplied by 3. So take this 2 out. Take this 2 squared out, take this 2 squared out. It's going to be 10 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2, which is going to be 40 radical 3. Okay, so we have this is 30 radical 3. And this is, as we said, 40 radical 3. Okay, for 300, really easy to prime factorize 300. 30 and 10, 5 and 2. 6 and 5, 3 and 2. Okay, so we have 5 squared multiplied by 2 squared multiplied by 3. Take out the 5 squared outside, it's going to be 5. Take out the 2 squared outside, it's going to be 2. 5 multiplied by 2 is 10, and we keep in the radical 3. And they have this minus 5. So we'll do minus 5 multiplied by 10. Because we said 5 multiplied by 2 is 10. It's going to be minus 50 radical 3. So we have 30 radical 3 plus 40 radical 3 minus 50 radical 3. Now since all of them have the same radicand, which is the number inside the radical as I said before, radical 3, we could just do 30 plus 40, which is 70, minus 50, which is 20. And then we don't change the radical 3. We just keep it the same. 20 radical 3 is your final answer. Okay, so this is basically just multiplying conjugate. This is the same thing you do when it's a fraction. So as I said, when you're multiplying conjugates, the rule is a squared minus b squared. You don't have a 2ab and stuff like that. So a squared, so radical 12 is a, so a squared is going to be 12. And then minus 5 squared is going to be minus 5. This is really easy. 12 minus 5, 7. So simple. Okay. They always keep giving you guys questions about 8 and 32. So 8 is again 4 and 2, 2 and 2. So we have 5, 2 squared multiplied by 2. Take out the 2 squared, it's going to be 5 multiplied by 2. And then we keep in the radical 2. So 5 multiplied by 2, we keep in the radical 2. That's going to be 10 radical 2. Now, for prime factorization of 32, 16 and 2, 8 and 2, 4 and 2, 2 and 2. So you have 2 squared and a radical 2 in the inside. I mean 2 squared multiplied by 2 squared multiplied by 2. I don't know why my 3 looks like that. Okay, so we take out a 2, we take out the other 2. It's going to be 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2, and we keep in the radical 2. So that's going to be 6 multiplied by 2, it's going to be 12. And the radical 2 stays the same. So the first one was 10 radical 2. This one's going to be 12 radical 2. 10 plus 12 is 22. And the radical 2 stays the same. 22 radical 2. Okay. So here we just distribute 1 multiplied by radical 7 multiplied by minus 8 and multiplied by radical 35. And the same thing for minus radical 5. So 1 multiplied by radical 7 is going to be radical 7. 1 multiplied by minus 8 is going to be minus 8. 1 multiplied by radical 35 is just going to be radical 35. And for minus radical 5, it's going to be, so minus radical 5 multiplied by 7 is going to be minus radical 35. Because 5 multiplied by 7, 35. Now we have minus radical 5 multiplied by minus 8. Okay, I already see how people could make mistakes on this one. So we have minus multiplied by minus is positive. And now, you don't do 8 multiplied by radical 5 to get to radical 40. Or you don't do, and you don't do 8 multiplied by radical 5 to get 40. This is gonna give you, imagine there's a 1 over here. There's always gonna be a 1. So basically when it's just plus radical 5, it's plus 1 radical 5. So you do 8 multiplied by 1. You multiply the numbers out, without the radical with the numbers outside the radical. So 8 multiplied by 1 is going to be 8. And the radical 5 stays the same. So there you go. And then finally we have minus radical 5 multiplied by radical 35. Okay, so the prime factorization of 35 is 7 and 5. We all know that. And they're basically just adding in a 5. So this is basically 5 squared. So when you take it out, it's going to be minus 5 radical 7. Let's fit that in over here. Okay, minus 5 radical 7 plus 7. This is a 1 over here. If it's just, if it has nothing outside the radical, it's a 1. So minus 5 radical 7 plus 1 radical 7, it's going to be minus 4 radical 7. Minus 4 radical 7. Let me rewrite the numbers. So we had minus 8. Let me write them at the top. We had radical 35. We had minus radical 35. And I think that's it. Okay, so this is, since there's nothing outside the radical, it's a 1. And here, same thing. So plus 1 minus 1, 0. Wait, no, I'm forgetting something. Okay, wait, so it's here, it's going to be an 8, minus 4 radical 7. There's supposed to be a... Oh yeah, my bad. We multiplied minus 8 radical... minus 8 and minus radical 5 to get plus 8 radical 5. Okay, so we got minus 4 radical 7. And then the minus... plus 1 radical 35. Minus 1 radical 35. 0, they cancel out. 8 radical 5 has nothing to add. Like, there's nothing else to add, yani. It's just plus 8 radical 5. You only add when they have the same radicand. Like, the same number inside the radical. If they don't, then you can't add. Okay. So, that's your final answer. 8 radical 5 minus 4 radical 7 minus 8. Okay, this is also really easy. Okay, so we distribute 3 radical 5 multiplied by 7 radical 6 plus 3 radical 5 multiplied by 8. Okay, so as I said like a million times, numbers outside the radical, you multiply them together. 3 multiplied by 7, 21. Numbers inside the radical, you multiply them together. Radical 5 multiplied by radical 6, radical 30. Okay. 3 and 8. 8's outside the radical, 3's outside the radical. 8 times 3, 24. Radical 5 has nothing to multiply it with, so it just stays the same. So we have 21 radical 3 plus 24 radical 5. Okay. So, as I said, when you have like a minus b, or like a plus b, you're gonna have the rule a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And for this one, it's gonna be a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, so here, in this case, we have a plus b. So we do a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. A squared, a is radical 5. We squared it, it's gonna be 5. 2ab, we do 2 multiplied by radical 3. This is a 1 over here. So it's going to be 2 radical 3. Because look. As I said, this isn't inside the radical. So you multiply it by what's outside the radical. If there's no number, it's always 1. So 2 multiplied by 1 is going to be 2 radical 3, because there's radical 3 over here, of course. Oh wait, and then okay, so we have 2 radical 3 because of 2 multiplied by radical 3. And then since we said that we multiply what's inside the radical together, we have 2 radical 3 multiplied by 5. So radical 3 multiplied by radical 5, radical 15. So plus 2 radical 15. And then we have b squared. So, and b is radical 3. We square it, it's going to be just 3. So 5 plus 3 is 8. And then, as I said, this is going to make it so much easier for you. When it has a radical, just imagine it's its own variable. So that's why you don't add 8 and 2 and make it 10 radical 15. So your final answer will be 8 plus 2 radical 15. Like, you wouldn't add x and y together. Oh, easy. So as I said, a shortcut for conjugates is when you have a minus b multiplied by a plus b, you do a squared minus b squared. So a is radical 32. When we square it, it's going to be 32. Minus b squared. B is radical 23. When you square it, it's going to be 23. So 32 minus 23 is going to be 9. Okay, so I heard many of you guys need help in 5.4, so that's why I made this video. I hope you guys understood. If you have any questions, ask in the comments. Feel free to ask. I'll be there. I could probably answer some. And good luck on tomorrow. I hope all of you guys, inshallah, do well and get this marks you all deserve.